Good morning, students of class 10. It is the first video of a long walk to freedom by Nelson Roli Lahla Mandela. Roli Lahla Mandela. It is his full name, but he is popularly known as the Nelson Mandela, who is a very famous struggler and a revolutionist who really had a sense of understanding that grew up when he just became mature and understandable, and he could fight against the injustice done by the whites in South America, which was so rich naturally, abundantly, with all the natural resources that was gold and diamonds. Really, it was a country which could empower itself to prosper in the world, but the political domination really lagged this country so backward and suffered. That is the story that Nelson Mandela narrates in this autobiographical speech and his life story. So here you will try to understand these things. Nelson Mandela was born on 18 July 1918 in the village of Mbezo, Mbezo in the Eastern Cape. He served as president of South America from 1994 to 1919. He is one of the greatest moralistic and political leaders of his time. He was renowned as an international hero who was dedicated to fight against the racial oppression done by the whites in South Africa. He was also conferred the Nobel Peace Prize, and he also was elected as the black president of South Africa when there was a free and fair election held in the country. So here, Long Walk to Freedom is the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, detailing his ascent from anti-apartheid activist and Robben Island jailed terrorist to African National Congress leader and cultural icon. Here, in this, you will understand about the genre, means style of his unique characteristics and how he really became a very creative leader in the history of the world. First of all, I would like to tell you about the system of apartheid that was practiced in this very land. Apartheid system, A-P-A-R-T-H-E-I-D, apartheid. It is a political system that separates people according to their race. It was practiced in South Africa, and to some extent you can say that it was practiced in America also, and you have learned about Abraham Lincoln, you know about Mahatma Gandhi, who really fought against the injustice. So these are the world leaders who had a very wide scope and grit and gust and very guts to fight against such injustice with all his moral, ethical, and spiritual power, which really made millions of people to free themselves from the shackles of the oppression of the whites in the world. Really, they are great personalities and their characteristics are really so inspirational. Nelson Mandela has become South Africa's first black president after more than 3 centuries of the white rule. Mr. Mandela's African National Congress Party won 252 of the 400 seats in the first democratic elections of South Africa's history. In this inauguration ceremony, which took place in the Union Buildings Amphitheatre in Pretoria, attended by politicians, dignitaries, the chief persons, most prestigious persons from more than 140 countries around the world. He had sent invitations to all those dignitaries of the world so that they could see the beautiful land and experience the oppression of one by another. He says like that. It is the most jubilant scene in the streets of Pretoria. Followed the ceremony with blacks, whites, and colored people celebrating all together, and more than 100,000 South African men and women and children, all races, sang and danced with joy. It was 10th May in 1994, which really brought a very bright and clear sunshine on this land. For the past few days, Nelson Mandela had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respects before the inauguration ceremony. The inauguration was the largest gathering ever held in the land of South Africa. Here, all those leaders who came were warmly received. The ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheatre. What is the meaning of amphitheatre? A building without a roof or with many rows of seats rising in steps. That was an ancient building, and it was made according to the ancient Greece and Rome. So here he wants to address the people, and it was the first time that in this land, this non-democratic, non-racial government was to be founded. It was a very lovely autumn day. He was accompanied by his daughter, his lovely daughter Zenani, Zenani, Zenani. And on the podium, on the stage, there were two persons, Mr. D. Clark, who was first sworn in as the second deputy president, and then Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as the first deputy president. When it was the turn of Mr. Nelson Mandela, he pledged to obey and uphold the constitution and devote himself to the well-being of the republic and its people. He said on this occasion very clearly very soundly with patience that today all of them had gathered there to confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. He had an extraordinary human disaster in this land that lasted for so long that gave the birth of a newborn society which all humanity will feel proud of. He said like that. Nelson Mandela told the people who were present there, it was such a large gathering that they had suffered a lot, and he thanked all those world leaders, all those dignitaries, distinguished international guests for coming and joining this very great inauguration in which they had a common victory for justice, for peace, and for human dignity. At last, he said that they had achieved political emancipation, freedom from all kinds of restrictions. They were restricted to go to certain hotels, certain schools, and certain parks and museums, cinema halls, where these blacks were not allowed. But now all these continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination would have come to an end. And really, it has come to an end, he said like that. He also expressed, never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. He meant to tell that in this very land no one will suffer from deprivation, poverty, and injustice as it was practiced during the rule of the whites. And so he lastly and finally addressed that the sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. He said, he meant to say that it would remain a glorious country where all the men, women, and leaders will work hard to make this country prosperous, developed, and God will bless all the Africans will achieve their target of making this country a progressive. In 1961, he left peaceful protest and became head of the African National Congress new military wing. And now it was the occasion of 10th May 1994 when they all lifted their eyes in a very spectacular array of South African jets, planes that were displaying with helicopters, and these were the carriers of the peaceful and perfect formation over the Union buildings. It was not only a display of pinpoint precision and military force, but it was a demonstration of the military's loyalty, faith to democracy, and to a new government that had been freely and fairly elected. Only a few moments before, the highest generals of South Africa Defence Force and Police, whose chests were bedecked with ribbons and medals from days gone by, they saluted Nelson Mandela and expressed their loyalty to him. Nelson Mandela was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before, these generals had come and arrested him, but now came to salute him because he was freely and purely elected. A several of Impala jets left a smoke of trail of the black, red, green, blue and gold of the new South African. Here it was the time that these soldiers who had come to participate in the inauguration ceremony, they were flying the planes, helicopters, making the display of the African national flag in the sky. It was a spectacular moment to be watched. This day symbolized for Nelson Mandela by playing of the two national anthems and the vision of white singing. What was this? Nkosi Cycle I Africa, and blacks were singing Die Esteem. Means these two national anthems, Nkosi Cycle I Africa, sung by whites, and the blacks sung Die Esteem, the old anthem of the Republic. Although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem, they once despised. Despised means hated. The whites hated the black and the blacks hated the whites. But now it was the time that both of them have come to promise that they would live together, they would sing together, they would work together, and they would work for justice together, and they would maintain the brotherhood, fraternity, and live as one countryman, and without any kind of discrimination that was followed during the previous rule. This scene was really overwhelming, and in the first decade of 20th century, a few years after a bitter Anglo-Boer War. Anglo-Boer War means here the English and the Europeans were fighting with the black people. That happened long ago, and in this very racial domination, the dark-skinned people of their own land were bitterly defeated, and they had to bear the crushing defeat, and they were insulted, and they had to live a very oppressive life for hundreds of years. At this moment, this very man was 80 years old, and he had seen the most inhuman, oppressive behavior of the whites who had really suppressed the blacks and did not allow them to enjoy the common privileges, whether it was political, cultural, or social gatherings and social justices. They were treated so brutally. He says that this day had really come through unimaginable sacrifices of all those thousands of black people. It was their suffering and courage that could never be repaid. He says like that. Means he pays homage to all those martyrs, all those people who had really sacrificed their life. They were great African patriots who had sacrificed their life long ago. He is really pained that he is not able to thank them, but they were not able to see what their sacrifices has brought. in their life. This policy of apartheid had created a deep and lasting wound, pain, suffering in his country and his people. All of them would spend many years, if not generations, recovering from that very profound, deep heart. But the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect. Means the brutality had really produced such courageous people like Oliver Tambus, the Walter Sicelas, the Chief Lutelis, the Yusuf Dadus, the Bram Fishers, the Robert Sulipos of the time. They were men of extraordinary courage, wisdom, and generosity that their life will never be known again. It is the F.W.A.D. Clark who shared the Nobel Peace Prize for negotiating South Africa's peaceful transition to multi-racial democracy. So he says that they had really acquired that very freedom, emancipation. So here he knows that his country is rich in the minerals and gems, precious stones that lie beneath its soil. He had always known, Mandela always knew that its greatest wealth is its people. He also knew that only the beautiful, precious gems are not sufficient to make a country rich and richer. He knows that the purest diamonds of the South Africa is its people. So he also likes to admire them. He says that it is from these comrades in the struggles, it is the friends who participated in the struggle that learn the meaning of this. He wants to say that men and women who risk their lives and give their lives for an idea. What was that idea? To fight against the injustice, to restore freedom for the blacks. And he just got it. He just bore with courage all this strength and resilience means the ability to deal with any kind of hardship and recover from its effects. That he knew it and he learned. What did he learn from these struggles? That courage was not the absence of fear. Courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Means if you want to overcome the fear, you will have to overcome it. The brave man is not he who does not fear, but he is the brave man who overcomes the fear. It was his idea. So he wants to say something like this. No one is born hating another person because the color of his skin or his background or his religion. He says that on the basis of skin, color, background or religion, no man should be hated. People must learn to hate. And if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to. What a wonderful philosophy is this. Why? Because love comes in a natural, spontaneous manner to the human heart than hatred. Even in the most serious time, when he spent his days in prison, he saw his comrades and he were pushed to their limits. Means the whites did have a limit to just cause them suffer from pain and sufferings. There was a God in whose eyes he could see some glimmer of humanity, that he knows that it is the pain that is inflicted upon the blacks, and so he says that man should be assured enough that man's goodness is a flame. What is a man's goodness? It is a flame that can be hidden, but it can never be extinguished. It will go on burning, and until the goodness is achieved, no one can deter him. In this way, I have told you about the first part of this lesson, and in the next part, I will tell you something more. You must like it because it is the person, Nelson Mandela, who really had grit and guts to fight against the injustice. Thank you, children. Thank you.